a lot of lay people don't understand that, how critical insurance is to a business, particularly where we were subcontractors on large subdivision. We did large subdivision work.
In 2003, we ran into an issue where the main way of attorneys to extort money out of contractors were that everything was product liability. Any job you did, whether you had anything wrong, I mean, we did fencing, rarely was there really anything of any consequence that was involved.
Product liability was becoming a huge problem.
But the attorneys were going around suing every subcontractor that worked on a job.
Just like you see a construction industry for building new homes, I'm sorry to say, if you're not aware, there's a separate industry for construction defects. They will file a lawsuit against each and every contractor that did any work whatsoever on that development.
Because we had to indemnify all of our general contractors. Every time they were sued for something wrong with the house, every subcontractor on the job had to indemnify that contractor.
Because it was getting so onerous for the insurance company, Zurich, who represented us then.
We were with Zurich for 20 years, over 20 years in fact, and they finally said, we aren't going to do business with anyone who has more than 50 employees.
They said they would no longer write for a company doing over $5 million a year in sales.
Well, that was not our company. We had 225 employees. We were doing close to $30 million in business a year. This was at the 11th hour. Like I said, our insurance was expiring within 2 days.
One of the components in determining the cost of your liability insurance is the gross receipts for the business. The greater the gross receipts, the more business is being conducted, the higher the insurance cost. What happened with Ed and Georgette is, very much at the last hour. The insurance is coming up for renewal. They found out that that the insurance went up 4 to 5 times in terms of what the overall cost was, which was a very challenging expense to try and cover and deal with. But the other component to that came up is their deductible increased well over 10 times.
We were just devastated with what they put in front of us. We could not operate. It became that we were basically self-insured. Self-insured for a premium of $400,000 a year, $35,000 deductible first dollar defense. No one can live with that. We couldn't survive and couldn't live with that. So we did consider, are we going to have to close the doors if we didn't have a way out of this? There basically we were very between a rock and a hard place at that point.
We went and spoke to John about, was there any way of doing it? We couldn't really change our company to a company doing under $5 million a year. It wouldn't make sense at that point. It probably would have made more sense just to liquidate, and take what we could get out of it and go on.
Contacted John, told him about the situation.
They really needed to find a different solution, and it was so bad that one of their first knee-jerk reactions was possibly to shut down, to go out of business. That is how disastrous this was. And so looking through this, the approach that we ended up using is we split the company into 7 separate companies. First, what we did is we formed a company that would handle the product, so the supplies, the lumber. And so that way we actually are able to pull the receipts associated with the products or supplies outside of that mix, because the liability for buying lumber is really quite low, as opposed to actually doing construction. We have workers pounding nails, digging holes, and the potential of getting hurt. And then what we did is we formed separate companies for the construction.
John came up with the idea of splitting the company up so that we had 6 different companies all doing under $5 million a year, insure them all with different insurance carriers, and then we were able to continue doing the work we were doing.
What's interesting about Ed and Georgette is they were both fully and actively involved with the management and growth of the business. Both of them had contractors licenses, and that's something that they had. And so what we did is we actually were able to identify that we could use 3 separate companies under each license. So now we took this very healthy, thriving company and split into 7 separate companies.
He immediately started telling us what we had to do. We had to get, both my husband and I are licensed contractors. We could get 3 contractors' licenses each, which is something we started immediately, and he handled that because he could get it expedited through the Contractors License Board.
One that was providing supplies and product and materials, 3 under Ed's license, contractor's license, 3 under Georgette's license, and that actually allowed them to continue in business, allowed them to continue and prosper. It wasn't easy because it was all something that had to be accomplished very quickly.
We had to have those contractor's license numbers in order to get our corporate entities up and running, and then we had to get be bonded, so contractor's license bonds on each one of those. And then he worked very closely with our new insurance agent to make sure that each entity had their own insurance as well.
Each company had to be an independent company, so it had to have separate employees, separate contracts, and so there was a great deal of complexity involved with that.
Basically, we broke our company up into these 7 different entities.
But this was a significant business, and this is really a second-generation business, and so this was allowing that business to continue and to thrive.
Each big contract that we had all the contracts then had to be written into each of these 7 different companies, and John facilitated all of that as well.
The customers we had, most of them we had long-term relationships with. They wanted to continue that relationship. They understood they were dealing with the same people, and so, it worked out really well.
If you were self-insured and you had to pick up first dollar defense for your attorneys, I can't even tell you. I'm sure it's in over $1 million that he has saved us right there.
He's an extremely good attorney. He's covered us, we've dealt with him now for, well over 20 years. And like I say, I just wish we would have gotten him on board sooner. Wish I would have known him sooner.